Alright, I decided to do a little part 2 here. This Trinity is all clean. The bathtub has been strained of python skin. And now it's time to get her back into her cage, but when I got her on the floor, I kind of wanted you to see her size. She's got some good thickness to her. She's really on a growth spurt. I'm just about 6 feet tall. And yeah, she's got a lot of length. She's got to be 13 feet, I would say. And I don't know, 50 pounds maybe? Maybe, yeah, it's hard to judge your weight. But she's all muscle, doesn't have any extra fat on her. She's got a good metabolism. Hey girl. Hey girl. But just a real gentle snake. Really, really good temperament. And very used to being handled and interacting with people. But as I was saying in my part 1, you know, most of the reptile keepers out there are very responsible people. They're not going to let their animals go. They're not going to allow them to escape and, you know, endanger the neighbor's chihuahua or anything like that. And we as reptile keepers have to just continually, you know, promote our hobby in a very positive manner. Educate people that snakes are great animals, you know, and they do need to be respected. And when you own a large constrictor, you got to be responsible, and you have to know what you're doing, because it's your responsibility to make sure that that animal does not escape. Not only because it endangers the animal, it could endanger, you know, the public, as far as just their overall fear of snakes. If this animal was to get out in my neighborhood, that would only further the cause that these animals are dangerous and people need to, you know, shouldn't have them. And, you know, anytime an animal escapes, it's just negative publicity for the hobby. And as long as we keep them in the proper caging and only take them out when it's safe to do so, and where the general public isn't going to be startled to see a large constrictor walking around the neighborhood or something, then we can use them as ambassadors for the hobby. But that's enough of that stuff. I'll get off my soapbox. But you guys all know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure everybody who subscribes to my channel, from what I've seen, everybody's responsible, and everybody knows that when you're a keeper of one of these kind of animals, the general population looks at it as a negative, and it's up to us to constantly be educating people who do know us and know what we're into, and know that we're passionate about our reptile hobby, that we show them that these animals are, they do need to be respected, but they don't need to be feared. And they're beautiful creatures, and they're here for a reason. She's just chilling. I could just stare at her all day. Hi, girlie. You want to go back in your cage, huh? I'll tell you, I trust my retics far more than I trust boas. Retics are very, very smart. And if you get bit by a retic, there's got to be a really good reason. Either you startled them while they were sleeping in their cage and they had a food response, or they're just in a bad mood and they don't want to be bothered. But both Arnold and her will tell me if they're in a bad mood. I can tell by their body language if they just don't feel like coming out of their cage. They've never struck at me or tried to bite me. Every now and then I'll try to take them out of their cage, and you'll notice that little coil bump that she does, where she kind of just does that. That's usually an indication that that they just kind of don't want to be bothered. Like right now, as I continue to bother her, right? She just wants to relax and chill out. So that coil bumping is usually an indication that they don't really want you to. They don't want to be bothered. They just kind of want to relax. And she'll do an awful lot of that when she's in her cage if she really doesn't want to come out. And then I don't push it. I take that as, okay, you're not in the mood for whatever reason. You just want to chill out, and then I don't bother her. But it's very rare that she really does big time coil bumping. Sometimes it's more of a startle, like if she's relaxing and I touch her, she kind of gets startled for a second. But I've never had any negative experiences with my 3 retics. And as long as they know that I am, I open up the cage and I'll tap them with the hook, and I'll make sure that they're alert, I'll make sure that they're looking at me and they know that I'm there, and then I'll reach in for them. And as long as I don't just blindly open the cage and reach in for them, I don't think I'll ever have a problem. And if they're in a hide, I'll never just lift the hide up and go after them, because most likely they're sleeping and they're going to be startled if all of a sudden I lift this hide up and start reaching in on them. So the people that I know that have been bitten by retics, even the ones that have been very tame, will usually say that it was their fault. It was either during feeding, or they startled the animal, they got too complacent. Or they're people that have adopted retics that just haven't been socialized enough and aren't very friendly because they're scared. Snakes that haven't been handled a lot. But I've had her for a while now. She was very small when I got her, same with Arnold and even Zeus. And all 3 of my retics know me, and they're very used to coming out, they're used to being handled, and I never worry when I'm interacting with these guys. But I've been bit a few times by a few of my boas. And usually there isn't really a good reason for it. A couple of them just were having bad days and they just kind of decided to reach around and chomp me. But you don't really see that with these guys. There's usually a good reason. If they're going to bite you, there's a reason for it. And I think that just goes to the intelligence factor. They're always aware, always looking at you. When I come into the snake room, they're always looking. They're always... they're conscious of the fact that I'm in the room, whereas a lot of the boa constrictors don't really seem to even care. So, never thought I'd become such a big retic fan, but I really love these guys. Alright, well, thanks for visiting again. Thanks for letting me do my preaching from my soapbox, but you guys all know. You guys are all responsible reptile keepers, and anybody who's just visiting my site, people that keep reptiles for the most part, they really have a passion for the animals, and if you're afraid of them, you may want to ask one of your friends, to allow you to handle them in a safe environment. I've had people come over that have been afraid of snakes, and they've left the house going, you know what, they're not what I thought they were. They're pretty cool. People they have a lot of preconceived notions of snakes, and a lot of people have never had a chance to handle them. And the most common thing that I hear is, boy, they're not slimy at all, And I'm like, no, they're not slimy. They're not worms, So if you got some friends that are a little scared of snakes, and you can get them to come over maybe under a controlled environment where they're not totally having the snake being forced in their face, you may be able to get somebody who's afraid of snakes, be able to change them. Because those are the people who are going to help us in our cause to fight these crazy laws that are out there, are the people that aren't really too familiar with snakes at all and really could care less about them or they're afraid of them. So, All right, thanks again for checking in, and we'll see you again soon with another update.